Some injury updates hit harder than a loss, and this one landed like a punch to the chest for everybody watching the Warriors right now. Steph Curry is set to miss at least 10 more days with that runner's knee issue, and the mood around this team has changed in a real way. This is no longer about patience or just waiting for the next game on the schedule. When your best player, your engine, your safety valve, and the guy every defense fears is stuck on the sideline, everything starts to feel unstable. That is exactly where Golden State is living at the moment. The record has slipped under 500, the losses have piled up, and the offense without Steph has looked tight, rushed, and uncomfortable. You can see it in the half-court sets, you can feel it in the pace, and you can hear it from fans who know this group was supposed to be built to matter in the spring, not just survive the final stretch of the regular season. The hardest part is that there still is not a clean return date. Every vague update just adds more tension to a season that already feels like it is hanging by a thread. And once you look past the injury itself, the bigger conversation starts getting louder. This roster has expensive pieces, real expectations, and not enough margin for error. Without Curry covering the cracks, those flaws are out in the open every night. The team does not have the same spacing, the same calm, or the same late-game edge. That is why more people around the league are starting to wonder whether the Warriors are headed towards something much bigger than a desperate push for the play-in. Because if this keeps sliding, the front office may have to think less about squeezing out one more short-term run and more about setting up a massive summer move. That is where the Giannis talk keeps creeping back in. Not because anything is easy, and not because Milwaukee is just going to hand over a superstar, but because the idea refuses to go away. A high pick in a loaded draft, combined with major assets and a front office that knows Curry's clock is precious, suddenly becomes a serious conversation. Around the NBA, teams do not wait forever when windows start closing. They look for the one swing that can change everything. Golden State may be getting pushed toward that kind of decision whether the organization wants it or not. Right, Curry deserves another run if you believe this franchise owes him one more real shot with a roster built to win, because that is what this is starting to come down to. Not pride, not nostalgia, not trying to limp into the postseason just to say the season did not fall apart. This is about whether the Warriors are willing to take a painful step back now to create something dangerous again around number 30. Fans are split on it, and honestly, both sides have a point, which is why this story keeps getting heavier by the day. What makes all of this even more tense is that Steph will always want to come back and compete, even if the bigger picture is telling the team something else. That is the part nobody in the Bay can ignore. The heart of a champion says fight. The reality of the roster says think bigger. And if the next stretch goes sideways, this may stop being just an injury story and turn into the setup for the most important Warriors offseason in years. Stay close, because the next update on Curry might not just tell us when he plays again. It might tell us what this franchise is really about to do next. There is also a layer to this that fans should not brush aside, and it has everything to do with how the rest of the league is watching Golden State right now. Rival executives are not looking at the Warriors as a team that is one small adjustment away. They are looking at a franchise sitting in a dangerous middle ground, too proud to bottom out, too limited to feel like a real threat, and too expensive to keep pretending time is on its side. That is what makes the next few weeks so sensitive. Every loss changes the temperature. Every medical update shifts the conversation. Every quiet night from the supporting cast makes the offseason feel closer. And when you really break it down, the pressure is not only on Steph's knee or on the coaching staff trying to keep things together. It is on the front office to decide whether sentiment is going to lead the room or whether cold reality will. This is where franchises either get stuck living off old banners or make one more move that gives their stars a real chance to matter again. Nobody in that building wants to admit it openly, but there is a growing sense that standing still would be the worst choice of all. The Warriors have seen enough to know this group, as currently built, asks too much from Curry and gives him too little margin when things tighten up. That is why every trade rumor, every draft projection, every Giannis whisper keeps getting more attention than usual. Fans understand what is at stake. Pairing Steph with another true force would not just freshen up the window, it would completely change the emotional tone around this franchise overnight. Suddenly, the fear would turn back into belief. Suddenly, the league would look at Golden State with that old tension again. And that is why this part matters so much. The Warriors do not need a cosmetic change. They need something bold enough to shake the room and remind everybody that this organization still knows how to move when the moment gets serious. Comment: the Bay still believes. If you think this team can still flip the whole story with one huge off-season decision, because that belief is really being tested right now. A lot of fan bases would settle for memories. Warriors fans are not wired that way. They have seen what a real contender looks like, and that makes this stretch even harder to accept. Nobody wants to watch the end of a season that feels smaller than the name on the jersey. People want a reason to look ahead and feel that same charge again. And this is exactly why being subscribed right now matters more than ever. The next few updates are not going to be noise. They could shape the entire direction of the franchise, and once the real movement starts, it is going to move fast. If you have been following this team through the highs and the frustration, lock in with the channel now, because the people who stay closest to the story are the ones who understand it first. Some of the biggest Warriors news of the year is still building behind the scenes, and the next piece of this may say even more than the last one. Before we continue this story, subscribe to the channel so you stay updated with everything happening with the Warriors. What makes this even more delicate is the fact that Golden State still carries a name that changes the way people talk, even in a season that has clearly gone off balance. Around the league, nobody is treating the Warriors like a harmless team. They are being studied like a franchise at a crossroads because everybody knows one aggressive summer can change the whole tone again. That is why the injury situation is being watched so closely. It is not only about missing games. It is about whether this front office sees the same warning signs the rest of the NBA is already seeing. You can sense that a hard conversation is coming. Not the public version, not the clean version that gets repeated in interviews, but the real one. How much longer can this organization keep asking Curry to carry a structure that keeps asking for miracles? How many more nights can they sell hope off his brilliance alone, while the roster around him leaves too many possessions unfinished, too many games half-controlled, too many stretches where the pressure starts to feel unfair? That is the part fans understand without needing it spelled out. Steph has covered for a lot. He still can. The issue is whether he should have to. And this is where things start getting uncomfortable in the best front offices. They stop asking what sounds loyal and start asking what gives them the strongest position 6 months from now. A valuable draft slot, expiring money, a trade framework big enough to enter superstar conversations without blinking. That kind of thinking may feel cold in the middle of the season, but it is also how teams avoid drifting into years of polite irrelevance. The Warriors know exactly what that danger looks like, and that is why so many people close to the league believe this offseason will not be quiet. Right? Never count out the Warriors if you still believe this franchise has one more serious move left in it, because that feeling has not disappeared in the Bay. It is bruised, frustrated, tested, but it is still there. Fans are not only watching games right now, they are reading every signal, every rotation choice, every bit of body language, every report that hints at what comes next. That is what happens when a team has lived at the top. People do not just watch the fall. They start searching for the next rise before the season is even over. There is also something else worth paying attention to. The longer this stretch lasts, the more it starts to affect how the rest of the roster is judged. Veterans get looked at differently. Younger pieces stop being long-term ideas and start being measured as trade value. Contracts that once felt manageable suddenly look like obstacles or matching salary. Nothing stays neutral once a franchise enters this kind of tension. Every piece starts being viewed through the lens of what it can become in a larger move. And that is exactly why the next phase of this story could get serious without much warning. That is also why this channel matters right now. Not for recycled headlines, not for empty drama, but because the next real shift could arrive before most people even realize the board has changed. Subscribe now and stay close, because when Golden State starts showing its hand, the early signs will matter just as much as the final move. And the truth is, there is one part of this story that has not fully surfaced yet. And when it does, it may change the way fans look at this entire season. If you're part of Warriors Nation and you want to follow every chapter of this team's journey, Subscribe now, because once that hidden part comes into focus, the conversation may stop being about damage control and start turning toward opportunity. If the Warriors finish this season with more questions than answers, the summer becomes the real stage, and that is where everything could shift around Curry in a way fans have been waiting to see. The pressure, the rumors, the silence from the top, all of it feels like the setup to something bigger than a routine off-season. Comment: this story isn't finished yet if you believe Golden State still has another major chapter left. And make sure you subscribe right now, because this channel is where you will catch every real update, every key development, and every move that could reshape the future of the Warriors before the rest of the league catches up.